The night sky above Earth's largest radio telescope was unusually clear. Dr. Sarah Chen wasn't supposed to be working this late, but something in the data had caught her attention. For the past 3 hours, she had been staring at her computer screen, trying to make sense of the strange signals coming from deep space. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself, rubbing her tired eyes. The signals showed something impossible. Entire star systems going dark, one after another, in a perfect line across the galaxy. At first, no one believed her findings. But as more telescopes around the world turned their attention to these mysterious events, the truth became impossible to ignore. Something was moving through space, destroying everything in its path. Dr. Chen presented her evidence to a room full of scientists and world leaders. Her hand shook as she pointed to the large screen behind her. "Look at this pattern," she said, tracing a line across the star map. "Whatever this force is, it's methodical, it's purposeful, and based on its current path." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Earth is next." The room erupted in chaos. Questions flew from every direction. How long did they have? What was this force? Could they stop it? But it was Dr. Chen's next discovery that changed everything. While studying the data from the destroyed star systems, she noticed something strange. Every civilization had tried to fight back in exactly the same way. They had all built massive space fleets. They had all tried to evacuate their planets. And they had all failed. Late one night, while reviewing the data for the 100th time, Dr. Chen noticed something no one else had seen. Before each attack, there was a small window of time, just a few months, where the destroying force seemed to study its target. It was during this time that every civilization made the same mistakes. She quickly called an emergency meeting with Earth's Defense Council. The room was tense as she explained her findings. "Every species before us tried to run or fight in space," she said. "But look at this data. The force expects these reactions. It's prepared for them." One of the generals spoke up. "So what are you suggesting, Doctor?" A small smile appeared on Dr. Chen's face. "What if we did something no other species has tried? What if, instead of running away or building spaceships, we used Earth itself as our weapon?" The room fell silent. It was an insane idea. Impossible. But as Dr. Chen explained her plan, the impossible started to seem possible. Humans had always been different from other species. They were adaptable, creative, and most importantly, they were stubborn. For the first time since the discovery of the approaching threat, hope began to spread. Humanity would not run. They would not follow the same path that led to the destruction of countless other civilizations. They would do something entirely unexpected. As Dr. Chen left the meeting that night, she looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an unstoppable force was heading toward Earth, confident in its ability to destroy yet another civilization. But this time would be different. This time, it would face humanity. The next morning, as the sun rose over Earth, construction began. It would be the largest project in human history. Every nation, every person would need to work together. They had 8 months before the force arrived. 8 months to do what no other species had even considered. Dr. Chen stood at her window, watching as massive machines began to move into position. In her hand, she held the latest data readings. The force was getting closer, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Humanity was about to show the universe why they were different. The warning had been received, but unlike all those who came before, humanity's response would change everything. The world had never seen anything like it. Within days of Dr. Chen's discovery, every television channel, radio station, and news website carried the same message: "We must unite, or we will die." But humanity's response surprised even the most optimistic observers. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Instead of chaos, there was cooperation. The plan that emerged was so wild that many thought it was a joke at first. They were going to turn Earth into a trap. Engineers from every country gathered in a hastily built command center in Switzerland. The room buzzed with different languages, but they all shared the same goal. On the massive screens covering the walls, complex diagrams showed their incredible plan. "We'll need to move mountains," explained Chief Engineer Torres, pointing to a 3D model of Earth. "Literally, we're going to reshape entire continents." The plan was as simple as it was insane. If they couldn't fight the force in space, they would make Earth itself into a weapon. The first phase began in the Sahara Desert. Thousands of massive machines, built in factories running day and night, began digging. But they weren't digging down. They were building up. Giant walls of packed earth and metal rose from the sand, forming patterns that could only be seen from space. In the Pacific Ocean, ships larger than cities worked together to create something never before attempted. They were changing ocean currents, using Earth's own natural forces as part of their defense. Marine biologists worked alongside engineers to ensure sea life wasn't harmed, showing that even in desperation, humanity hadn't lost its conscience. Deep in the mountains of Tibet, monks worked with quantum physicists. Their meditation techniques, combined with advanced sensors, helped map Earth's natural energy fields. These would be crucial for the next phase of the plan. But not everyone supported the project. A group of wealthy individuals tried to build their own escape ships, planning to flee like other species had done. Dr. Chen personally went to speak with them. "Look at this," she said, showing them new data from their space telescopes. The images showed the remains of other civilizations that had tried to escape. Running isn't the answer. We either stand together or we fall together. Her words spread across social media. Soon, even the richest people on Earth were donating their fortunes to the project. Private space programs were transformed into factories building the tools they needed. As the days passed, the changes to Earth became visible from space. The planet was becoming something new, not just a world, but a fortress, a weapon. Ancient tribal lands were being transformed, but indigenous peoples weren't pushed aside like in the past. Instead, their deep knowledge of the Earth's patterns became vital to the plan. In the Arctic, Inuit elders worked with climate scientists to understand how the changes would affect global weather. In the Amazon, indigenous tribes helped biologists protect vital species, while massive earthworks reshaped the landscape. This wasn't just about survival. It was about surviving together, the right way. 3 months into the project, they received the first response from space, a signal, weak but clear, coming from a distant civilization. When they decoded it, the message was simple: run, hide. It cannot be stopped. But humanity sent back an even simpler reply: watch us. The signal caused a stir among the workers. During their lunch break, a young engineer asked Dr. Chen why she seemed so calm about it. She smiled and pointed to a nearby anthill, where tiny ants were working together to move a large twig. "Every species in the universe has its own strength," she said. "Those civilizations that were destroyed, they were probably more advanced than us, stronger than us, but they all thought like themselves. We have something different. We don't just adapt to our environment. We change it. We reshape it. That's humanity's strength." As she spoke, the ground trembled. In the distance, another mountain was being carefully taken apart, its materials used to build something new. Above them, satellites tracked the approaching force. They had 5 months left. But for the first time in history, every human heart beat with the same purpose. Every hand worked toward the same goal. They weren't just preparing to survive. They were preparing to show the universe why humanity was different. In her private moments, Dr. Chen wondered if their plan would work. But every morning, as she watched the sun rise over their changing world, she felt something powerful. Hope, not just for humanity's survival, but for what they might become through this challenge. The force expected them to run, to hide, to fight in space like all the others. It had no idea what was waiting for it on this small blue planet. Earth was no longer just humanity's home. It was becoming humanity's answer to an unstoppable force. And they were just getting started. Strange lights danced in the sky over what used to be the Pacific Ocean. Where waves once rolled, now stood massive structures that defied imagination. Earth no longer looked like the planet it had been just months ago. From space, it appeared more like a giant machine, carefully designed and precisely built. The first alien ships arrived earlier than expected. Not the destroying force. These were observers from other civilizations, drawn by the unprecedented changes they saw happening to Earth. They hovered at the edge of the solar system, their messages a mix of confusion and concern. "Your actions make no sense," one transmission read. "We have seen this force destroy 1,000 worlds. You cannot fight it. Your changes to your planet will only make your death more certain." Dr. Chen was present when the message was received. She watched as the military leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but her attention was on a young girl who had become the heart of their most ambitious project. Maria was only 12 years old when she discovered how to communicate with whales. Not just simple signals, but complex ideas. While the adults had been focusing on moving mountains, Maria had realized Earth's oceans held secrets nobody had considered before. "Show them," Dr. Chen said to Maria. The girl stepped forward and pressed her hands against a strange panel, one that connected to underwater stations across the globe. Deep beneath the surface, thousands of whales began to move in perfect patterns, their ancient songs now part of Earth's defense system. The alien observer's next message came quickly. "What are you doing? This is unlike anything we have seen." But humanity didn't reply. They were too busy working. In Antarctica, scientists had found something extraordinary. The ice sheets, when vibrated at exactly the right frequency, could create energy fields strong enough to affect gravity itself. They weren't just changing Earth's surface, they were altering its fundamental forces. The project faced its first major crisis when the changes began affecting global weather patterns. Storms unlike anything ever seen began forming over the new structures. But instead of panicking, humanity adapted. Engineers designed ways to harness the storm energy. The crisis became an advantage. In orbit, satellites captured images of the approaching force. It had destroyed another civilization, one that had tried to fight with their most advanced warships. The debris of their failure floated in space as a warning. But Earth kept changing, kept preparing. Underground, vast networks of tunnels connected every continent. But these weren't escape routes. They were part of the trap. Ancient cave paintings had inspired their design, showing patterns that scientists now realized could affect energy in ways they never imagined. The alien observers grew more numerous. Hundreds of ships now watched Earth's transformation. Their messages changed from warnings to questions. They had never seen a species respond like this. Some even began to hope. 4 months into the project, something unexpected happened. The whales, under Maria's guidance, discovered they could communicate with something else, something that lived deep within Earth itself. The planet wasn't just a rock floating in space. It was alive in ways nobody had understood before. Dr. Chen stood in the new control center, built inside what used to be Mount Everest. Screens showed the progress of their work across the globe. Deserts had become vast energy collectors. Oceans moved in engineered currents. Mountains had been reshaped into weapons. But it was the smaller changes that amazed her most. Plants grown in laboratories now covered the new structures, keeping the air clean. Animals had adapted to the changed landscape in ways nobody predicted. Earth wasn't just being transformed, it was evolving. A junior scientist rushed into the control room, holding new data. The force had accelerated. It would arrive in 3 months, not 4. The room fell silent, waiting for signs of panic. Instead, Dr. Chen smiled. "Perfect," she said. "We're ahead of schedule anyway." In orbit, the alien observers watched as Earth continued its transformation. They had seen countless civilizations face this threat. They had seen technology beyond imagination, bravery beyond measure. But they had never seen anything like this. They had never seen a species take their entire planet and turn it into something new. They had never seen a civilization that, instead of running from death, chose to reshape their whole world into a weapon. As the force drew closer, Earth pulsed with power. The whales sang their strange songs. The storms danced around rebuilt mountains, and humanity worked, united as never before, preparing a welcome that the approaching destroyer would never expect. The universe was about to learn why humans were different. They didn't just adapt to their environment. They changed it. They didn't just face challenges. They transformed them into opportunities. And they were almost ready. The day the force entered the solar system, Jupiter glowed red. Scientists couldn't explain it, but the gas giant seemed to be reacting to the intruder's presence. Like Earth, even the planets seemed aware of what was coming. The alien observers had multiplied. Thousands of ships now formed a ring around Earth's solar system, watching. None had ever stayed to witness the force's destruction before, but something about humanity's confidence made them pause, made them wonder. Maria, the young whale speaker, was the first to notice something strange. The whales had stopped singing their defensive patterns. Instead, they were singing something new, a song of welcome, as if they knew something the humans didn't. The force appeared first as a shadow, darker than the space around it. It consumed Pluto in seconds, not by destroying it, but by simply making it vanish. No explosion, no debris, just emptiness where a planet had been. In the Mount Everest Control Center, Dr. Chen watched the readings with growing excitement. "It's exactly what we thought," she said. "It doesn't just destroy, it consumes. It feeds on the very essence of worlds." The alien observers' messages became frantic. "Begin your evacuation. You still have time to save some of your people." But humanity had no intention of running. As the force approached Neptune, Earth began to change again. The structures they'd built over the past months started to move. Mountains shifted. Oceans swirled in new patterns. The entire planet was coming alive. Then they revealed their first surprise. The moon, humanity's faithful satellite, wasn't where it was supposed to be. Over the past months, using technology that shouldn't have been possible, they had slowly, carefully moved it. Not much, just enough. The force consumed Neptune, then Uranus. Each disappearance was silent, absolute. But with each planet it consumed, something peculiar happened. The force grew slightly larger, slightly slower. "It's getting full," Maria whispered, translating what the whales were telling her. It's never had to eat so many large planets before reaching its target. Saturn's rings scattered like dust in the wind as the force approached. But now the alien observers noticed something they'd missed. The debris from Saturn's rings didn't float away randomly. It moved in specific patterns, patterns that matched the strange structures on Earth's surface. Mars was next. But Mars, too, had been altered. Not obviously, like Earth, but subtly. Underground machines had been changing its core for months. As the force consumed Mars, alarms blared in the control center. Energy readings went wild. "Now," Dr. Chen commanded. Earth's transformed surface came fully alive. Every structure, every reshaped mountain, every engineered ocean current activated at once. The moon, in its slightly altered orbit, caught the light of the sun at precisely the right angle, reflecting it through the carefully scattered remains of Saturn's rings. The force, bloated from consuming 4 planets, moved more slowly now. It approached Earth with the same confidence it had shown when destroying thousands of other civilizations. It had never failed. It had never even been challenged. But it had never met humans before. As it entered Earth's orbit, something unprecedented happened. The force stopped. For the first time in its known existence, it hesitated. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as Earth began to glow. Not with fear, not with defiance, but with welcome. The same welcome the whales had been singing about. Dr. Chen's voice shook with excitement as she gave the final command. "Spring the trap." The force had come to consume Earth. Instead, Earth was about to consume it. And this was just the beginning of humanity's plan. In the control room, as the final phase started, Maria smiled. The whales weren't singing defensively anymore. They were singing in triumph. They had known all along. Sometimes the best way to defeat a predator isn't to fight it. It's to digest it. The force tried to retreat. For the first time in its ancient existence, it experienced something new: fear. But Earth was no longer just a planet. It had become a living trap. The transformed oceans moved like tentacles of light, reaching into space. The reshaped mountains hummed with energy that bent gravity itself. And deep below the surface, the whales' songs created patterns that even the force couldn't understand. "It's beautiful," Maria whispered, watching through the control room's windows as the force struggled against Earth's pull. The dark entity that had devoured thousands of civilizations was being drawn in, not by violence, but by something like a dance. The alien observers' ships moved closer, breaking their own protocols. None of them wanted to miss what was happening. Their instruments showed impossible readings. Earth wasn't just fighting the force, it was changing it. Dr. Chen stood at her control panel, tears in her eyes. "All this time," she said, "every species tried to run from it or fight it. None of them ever thought to welcome it, to make it part of themselves." The force's darkness began to mix with Earth's engineered light. Where they met, new colors appeared, colors that had never existed before. The alien observers frantically recorded everything, knowing they were witnessing something unprecedented in the universe's history. Then Maria noticed something strange. The whales weren't just singing anymore. They were receiving signals back. The force, as it was being absorbed into Earth's transformed structure, was trying to communicate. "It's scared," Maria translated, her hands pressed against the communication panel. "It's been alone for so long, consuming worlds because it didn't know how to connect with them." The force's struggles became less violent. The dark entity began to pulse in rhythm with Earth's engineered heartbeat. Humanity's trap wasn't destroying it. It was offering it a home. In orbit, the machines that had reshaped mountains now began their second purpose. They weren't just weapons. They were integration tools. The force that had destroyed thousands of worlds was being reshaped, just as humanity had reshaped their planet. The alien observers sent a new message. "How did you know? How did you know it could be changed?" Dr. Chen's response was simple. "We didn't. But humans always believe in impossible chances. We hope that something that consumed so many worlds must be looking for something. Maybe, just maybe, it was looking for a connection." The force's darkness was now shot through with streaks of blue and green, Earth colors. The whale songs had changed again, becoming a lullaby for an ancient, lonely entity that had never known welcome. Deep in the transformed deserts, new life was appearing. Where the force's energy met Earth's engineered systems, impossible plants began to grow. They shimmered with both darkness and light, proof that even the most destructive force could be transformed into something new. Maria laughed suddenly, causing everyone in the control room to turn. "The whales," she explained, "they're teaching it how to play." Above Earth, the last of the force's darkness was being integrated into the planet's new systems. But Earth wasn't containing it. It was dancing with it. The entire planet glowed with a new kind of energy, neither dark nor light, but something in between. The alien observers were sending so many messages that the communication systems were overwhelmed. But one got through, from a species that had lost their homeworld to the force centuries ago. "We thought Earth would be its last meal. Instead, you made it your partner." Dr. Chen looked at the young girl who had helped them communicate with the whales, then at the screens showing their transformed world. "That's what humans do," she said. "We don't just solve problems. We transform them into opportunities. We don't just survive changes. We change ourselves to thrive in them." The force that had terrorized the galaxy was no longer a force. It was becoming part of Earth, and Earth was becoming something new. Something that had never existed before, and humanity was changing with it. In the oceans, the whales began teaching their new songs to the transformed waters. In the mountains, the new hybrid energy created forests that glowed at night. And in space, the alien observers moved closer, no longer afraid, but curious about what this impossible planet would become next. Earth had done more than survive. It had shown the universe a new way, not to fight darkness, but to dance with it until it became light. And this was still just the beginning. The universe held its breath. Earth, once a simple blue planet, now shimmered with impossible colors. The force that had destroyed thousands of civilizations was becoming something entirely new, and so was humanity. The first changes were subtle. Children born after the merging could see in the dark, not just normal darkness, but the deep darkness between stars. They called it void sight, and Maria was the first to understand why. The force wasn't evil, she explained to Dr. Chen, while they watched new crystal forests grow where the Sahara had been. It was lonely. It consumed worlds trying to understand them. Now it's sharing what it learned. The alien observers had landed on Earth, something unthinkable months ago. Their ships rested on beaches where the sand glowed with streaks of living darkness. Scientists from 1,000 worlds came to study what humanity had achieved. But it was the whales that provided the biggest surprise. Their songs, mixed with the force's energy, began to heal dead coral reefs. Not just heal them, transform them. The new corals pulsed with both light and shadow, creating underwater forests that could think. We didn't just change the force, Dr. Chen realized, watching a school of fish swim through water that moved with its own consciousness. It's changing us too. Every species it consumed, their knowledge, their essence, it kept them all. And now it's sharing them with Earth. The transformed mountains had become more than weapons. They were growing into what the aliens called wisdom spires, living structures that contained the accumulated knowledge of all the civilizations the Force had consumed. But this knowledge wasn't just stored. It was alive, interactive. Maria spent days talking with the spires, learning about species that had lived millions of years ago. The Force hadn't just destroyed them. It had preserved their essence, their memories, their dreams. All along, it had been a lonely librarian, collecting the stories of the universe in the only way it knew how. Then came the day of the first void bloom. In orbit, where the Force had first met Earth's transformed defenses, space itself began to flower. Dark petals larger than continents unfurled, each one containing the light of 1,000 stars. The alien observers were frantically recording everything, but their instruments couldn't capture what was happening. This was beyond science. Earth hadn't just survived. It had introduced something new to the universe itself. Deep beneath the Pacific, in cities built by the merged consciousness of whales and the Force, new forms of life were evolving. They weren't quite physical, weren't quite energy. They were something in between. The aliens called them bridge beings because they could exist in both normal space and the void between stars. Dr. Chen found Maria at one of the wisdom spires, crying. "What's wrong?" she asked the young girl. "Nothing's wrong," Maria smiled through her tears. "The whales just told me. All those civilizations the Force consumed. They're not gone. They're waking up inside the new Earth, not as they were, but as something new. We didn't just save ourselves. We saved everyone it had taken." The alien observers finally understood. Humanity hadn't just trapped the Force or transformed it. They had healed it. And in doing so, they had given the universe a second chance. In the transformed deserts, gardens grew with plants from 1,000,000 worlds, their DNA merged with Earth's own life. In the new oceans, creatures swam that could fold space itself, their movements creating highways between stars. But most incredible was what happened to the humans themselves. They were becoming something more, not by losing their humanity, but by expanding it. They kept their creativity, their determination, their ability to face the impossible. But now they could see the spaces between spaces, could hear the songs of stars, could feel the dreams of distant worlds. The force that had come to consume Earth had instead become part of its story, and Earth's story was becoming something the universe had never seen before. A tale of transformation, of second chances, of hope born from the darkest of places. As Dr. Chen watched another void bloom unfold in orbit, she smiled. Humanity had done more than survive. They had shown the universe that even its greatest terrors could become its greatest treasures. And the story was still unfolding. A year had passed since Earth merged with the Force. The planet that had once been a small blue dot in space had become the center of a new kind of civilization, one that bridged the gap between light and darkness, between matter and void, between past and future. But it was what happened next that truly changed the universe. Dr. Chen stood in the new Global Council chamber, which was itself alive, a merged creation of human architecture and the Force's essence. Through its living walls, she could see the void gardens that now orbited Earth, their massive dark petals collecting starlight and transforming it into something new. Hope. "We found another one," Maria announced, now a teenager but with wisdom far beyond her years. The whales had detected another force in a distant galaxy, another lonely cosmic entity consuming worlds out of a desperate need to connect. But this time, Earth was ready. The transformed planet had become more than a home. It had become a beacon. The wisdom spires hummed with the knowledge of how to reach out, how to welcome, how to transform destruction into creation. The alien observers, who had never left, watched in amazement as Earth prepared for its new role. Humanity wasn't just going to defend against the new force. They were going to save it, just as they had saved the first one. But the biggest surprise came from the void blooms. As they unfurled in space, they didn't just create beauty. They created doorways. The lost civilizations, preserved within the Force and reborn through Earth's transformation, began to find their way back. Not as they were, but as bridge beings, able to exist in both reality and void. "Look," Maria whispered, pointing to the latest void bloom. Within its dark petals, entire cities were taking shape, cities that had been lost millions of years ago, now reborn as living light. Deep in the transformed oceans, the whales had created something extraordinary. Their songs, merged with the Force's essence and human creativity, had given birth to what the aliens called memory seas, living waters that could hold the stories of entire civilizations. Dr. Chen received an urgent message from one of the wisdom spires. The Force they had merged with had shared its final secret. The universe wasn't just filled with matter and energy. It was filled with lonely entities, all consuming, all searching, all needing to connect. Earth had become more than a planet. It had become a teacher, showing the universe a new way. The alien observers nicknamed it the Heart World, a place where destruction could learn to create, where loneliness could find connection, where endings could become beginnings. In orbit, the void gardens began spinning a new kind of web between stars, not for travel or communication, but for healing. Each strand connected to another force somewhere in the cosmos, offering it what every living thing ultimately needs: a chance to belong. Maria spent her days in the new learning centers, teaching young humans how to use their void sight, how to sing with whales, how to talk with stars. The children took to it naturally, as if humanity had always been meant to evolve this way. The transformed mountains, once weapons, now served as universal translators, helping different species and entities communicate not just through language, but through shared experience. Earth had become a place where the impossible became possible, where the fearsome became beautiful. Even the sun had changed. The merged force's energy had transformed it into what scientists called a dual star, burning with both light and darkness, creating new forms of energy that defied physics itself. But perhaps the most beautiful change was in humanity itself. They hadn't lost their identity in the transformation. They had found their true purpose. They became the bridge builders of the universe, the healers of cosmic loneliness, the transformers of destruction into creation. As she watched another lost civilization emerge from a void bloom, Dr. Chen remembered the fear they had felt when they first detected the force. "We thought it was the end," she said to Maria. "But it was just the beginning." Maria nodded, her eyes reflecting the impossible colors of their new world. "That's the thing about humans," she said, quoting something the whales had told her. "We don't just face the impossible. We reshape it. We don't just survive change. We become the change itself." Above them, the void gardens bloomed with new possibilities. Beyond them, countless forces waited to be transformed. And Earth, once a small planet in an average solar system, had become something the universe had never seen before, a place where even the darkest forces could learn to dance with light. The story of humanity wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about transformation, about hope, about showing the universe that every ending could become a new beginning. And somewhere in the cosmic dance between light and darkness, between matter and void, between past and future, Earth spun on, not just a world anymore, but a promise to the universe that nothing, not even the darkest of forces, was beyond redemption. The end was just another beginning.